Nneka's secret, the whisper of trouble. Nneka was just a 15-year-old girl in her small Igbo village of Umugbu. Her days were simple. She helped her mother in the kitchen, fetch water from the stream, and went to the market to sell the baskets her father made. But something had changed. For weeks, Nneka had been feeling strange. Her body was different, her stomach felt heavy, and she often felt sick in the mornings. One day, after coming back from the market, Nneka felt very weak. She rushed to her room and lay down. Her mother, Mama Nkechi, noticed Nneka's pale face and tired eyes. "Nneka, what is wrong with you?" Her mother asked, concerned. "Nothing, Mama. I am just tired from the market," Nneka replied, but deep down, she knew something was terribly wrong. A few more weeks passed, and Nneka's fear grew stronger. Her stomach had started to grow, and she couldn't hide it anymore. She was scared of what her parents would think, of what the people in the village would say. In Umugbu, girls were expected to finish school, learn how to cook, and help their families. Having a baby without being married was considered a disgrace. One night, when everyone was asleep, Nneka stood in front of the small mirror in her room. She lifted her blouse and looked at her belly. It was round and firm. She had heard about pregnancy before, but this was not supposed to happen to her. She was too young. She hadn't even finished school. The next day, Nneka couldn't hold the secret any longer. She decided to visit Auntie Ifioma, her mother's cousin, who lived in the next village. Auntie Ifioma was kind, wise, and always knew what to do. "Auntie, I don't know how to say this, but I think I'm pregnant," Nneka whispered with tears in her eyes. Auntie Ifioma stared at Nneka in shock. "Pregnant? How did this happen, Nneka? You are too young." "I don't know, Auntie. It was one time, and now I don't know what to do," Nneka sobbed. Auntie Ifioma hugged her tightly. "We must think of something, but we cannot tell your parents yet. They will be heartbroken." Days passed, and Nneka continued to hide her growing belly. She stopped going to the market and avoided her friends. Whenever someone asked why she wasn't feeling well, she would say she had a stomachache. But her mother was starting to get suspicious. "Nneka, you are always tired. You hardly eat. What is going on?" Her mother asked one evening. "I am fine, Mama. It is just the heat," Nneka replied, though she could feel her secret growing heavier each day. One morning, as Nneka was fetching water from the stream, her mother decided to follow her. She had noticed that Nneka had been acting strange for too long. As Nneka bent down to fill her water pot, her mother saw the slight bulge in her daughter's stomach. Her heart sank. "Nneka, turn around," her mother commanded in a stern voice. Nneka froze. She knew the moment had come. She didn't want to tell her mother about Obi, the boy from the next village who had promised her love and then disappeared. It wasn't long before the entire village of Umugbu found out about Nneka's pregnancy. Women whispered about her at the market, children pointed at her as she walked by, and even the elders shook their heads in disappointment. "She has brought shame to her family," they said. A child having a child, Nneka felt ashamed. Everywhere she went she could feel the eyes. Nneka, carrying a small bag of clothes, left her family's house with tears in her eyes. She walked slowly to Auntie Ifioma's house, feeling scared and alone. As she passed through the village, the women looked at her with pity, while the men shook their heads in disapproval. Auntie Ifioma welcomed Nneka into her home with open arms. "You will stay here until the baby is born. We will figure this out together," she said kindly. While living with Auntie Ifioma, Nneka met a young woman named Adana. Adana had also gotten pregnant at a young age, and her story was similar to Nneka's. She had been shamed by the village, but she had learned to stand up for herself and her child. "Don't listen to what people say," Adana told Nneka one afternoon as they sat under the shade of a large tree. "Your child is not a mistake. You are stronger than you think. Nneka listened carefully, and for the first time in months, she felt a glimmer of hope. One day, while walking to the stream, Nneka heard about a wise old woman named Nneka, who lived deep in the forest. The villagers said she was a healer and knew many secrets about life and nature. Nneka, feeling desperate, decided to visit Nneka. She walked for hours until she reached a small hut surrounded by tall trees. An old woman with silver hair sat outside, waiting as if she had known Nneka would come. Nneka listened as Nneka told her story. The old woman nodded, her eyes full of understanding. Young girl, do not be afraid, Nneka said. The road ahead will not be easy, but you are stronger than you know. This child you carry is not a curse. It is a gift. Nneka was surprised. A gift? But everyone says I have brought shame to my family. People fear what they do not understand, Nneka replied. You must learn to rise above their words. Your strength will come from within. As months passed, Nneka began to grow stronger. She no longer cared about the whispers and stares from the villagers. She spent time with Adana, who taught her how to prepare for the baby, and visited Nneka often to seek advice. Finally, the day came when Nneka gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Holding her son in her arms, she realized that everything Nneka had said was true. Her child was a gift, and she was no longer afraid of the future. After the birth of her son, Nneka decided it was time to return to her family's home. With her baby strapped to her back, she walked back to Umugbo. The villagers still stared, but Nneka no longer cared. When she reached her family's house, when she got to her house, her mother welcomed her, but her didn't. She asked her mother if her father was still angry with her. Her mother said, "Don't worry, your father will come around."